Hey everyone, my name is Ash and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, we'll be discussing pretty privilege. We'll talk about what pretty privilege is, studies and discussions regarding the topic, advantages and disadvantages of pretty privilege, and my thoughts regarding pretty privilege as a whole. But before we get started, please remember to like and subscribe to my channel. Also, please leave a comment letting me know your thoughts on today's video, as well as other topics you would want to see in the future. Now, let's get started. You all already know we have to start with definitions and then expand. For other videos, I'd usually have a dictionary or official definition, but since pretty privilege doesn't have an official definition, we will be using the definition of pretty and privilege from Webster Dictionary. Pretty is defined as pleasing by delicacy or grace, or having conventionally accepted elements of beauty, while privilege is defined as a right or an immunity granted as a peculiar benefit, advantage, or favor. As close as I can get to an actual definition, I added the ones found on Urban Dictionary. So according to Urban Dictionary, pretty privilege is defined as when being pretty/beautiful gets you better things or opportunities. And someone who gets clout, opportunities, and becomes more successful in life because of how attractive they are. When I was looking into articles regarding definitions and descriptions, they all kind of supported these definitions by basically saying that pretty gets you benefits that those who aren't as pretty wouldn't get. While researching, I also found that pretty privilege is hard to not only define, but also to understand. Of course, as society, we've discussed the term privilege at length. But what is it to be considered pretty? And how do we determine if someone is pretty enough to even have pretty privilege? Shazia Abram of the Daily Vox notes this, saying, white privilege or male privilege, for example, is easier to understand because it relates to the way certain elements of the identity that seem to be more easily measured. But it's not as simple to quantify or define pretty. When we talk about pretty privilege, we usually talk about the level of attractiveness these people have. This attraction can come from many different places. For one, society has beauty standards. Beauty standards vary across the globe and can look very different depending on where you are. If you happen to fall into the standard, or according to Grace O'Connell Joshua, are checking the boxes, the closer you are to benefiting from this privilege. These standards are why models and Instagram models can create a career simply from their looks. Due to them having a certain look, they attract agencies and fans. Even algorithms tend to favor pretty people. I discussed this briefly in my TikTok video, where the app's old policy used to suppress videos that included those that didn't fit certain standards. We like seeing pretty people, and companies know that, and use it in their advertising and algorithms. Articles have also discussed that from an evolutionary standpoint, we naturally tend to select those who are likely to carry on our lineage, and attractiveness can be seen as a sign of good genes and health. This comes from the micro-calculations we make. If someone looks nice, we might assume that they're hygienic and do self-care. If they don't have a lot of acne, we might chalk it up to good genes. These are traits we consciously or unconsciously look for in potential partners. There are probably a bunch of other places that this attraction comes from, but these are just a couple that I found while reading. If you're interested in learning more about the ins and outs of attractiveness and beauty, the Quove Studio is a really good channel on YouTube. They're one of the reasons I was inspired to make this video, and I would highly suggest checking them out. Now that we've discussed what pretty privilege is, we can discuss what the actual benefits of pretty privilege are. Pretty privilege comes with a lot of benefits in different aspects of life. In the personal life of a pretty person, they could be assumed by others to be popular, both on social media and in real life, smarter, healthier, more trustworthy, and even less likely to commit a crime. Another advantage of pretty privilege is the assumed work ethic and productivity. For pretty people, employers sometimes project certain feelings on them due to their attractiveness. For them, they get a job and climb the corporate ladder a lot quicker. They might be perceived to be more persuasive and may even earn more money than their not as pretty counterparts. In regards to the money debate, usually people discuss that pretty people are paid more just for being pretty. However, in some situations, when the job requires going out and getting customers, pretty people have the advantage of garnering more consumers due to their prettiness. This, in turn, brings more profit to the company, putting the emphasis on them over the other employees. Lastly, staying on the topic of working, pretty people and their privilege extends farther than just looks. In a piece from mediaandsociety.org, they state that the research in why beauty matters shows that employers consider attractive people more productive than less attractive people, even when their only interaction was telephonically. In the research controlled for self-confidence, economists found that employers tended to overestimate the productivity of beautiful people. employers wrongly expect good-looking workers to perform better than their less attractive counterparts under both visual and oral interaction, even after controlling for individual worker characteristics and worker competence, the researchers wrote. While there are a lot of advantages of pretty privilege, there are a good amount of disadvantages as well. To start, pretty people can feel insecure, but it is negated because people believe that they should be happy because they're pretty. While being pretty does have its quote-unquote benefits, it does open the door to opinions. For example, a writer named Zoe discusses this on her blog. She states the following: "I'll start with being honest about my own experience. I am pretty, and being pretty is really weird. Writing those words is scarier for me than writing that I am or that I have a chronic illness, both of which are also true, because saying I am pretty invites criticism of my looks to dispute my claim, and criticism of my personality for being full of it." Another disadvantage of pretty privilege would be that they are assumed to be unintelligent. While I did discuss that pretty people tend to be assumed as smart, sometimes they are characterized by physical attributes. For example, Marilyn Monroe was regarded as an intelligent woman, but she was looked at as a dumb blonde stereotype at the time. Referring back to the Daily Box article, attractive women who seek work in particularly male-dominated fields are often thwarted by what is called the Bimbo effect, where they are underestimated because of their looks. These women have to work harder to prove their competence and commitment. It has also been shown that pretty people, especially women, are usually made to feel as though they are self-centered or conceited if they're not modest about their looks. Janet Mock discusses this in an article she wrote on pretty privilege that stated women have been trained to minimize their greatness in an effort to be more likable. We learned that when we are complimented, especially about our looks, we must dismiss the compliment, feign self-deprecation and modesty, undermine our looks, and pretend we did absolutely nothing to contribute to them. Lastly, those deemed pretty and attractive may end up falling victim to being in an abusive relationship and/or have stalkers. While this is rather extreme, it is still a reality. For example, the internet has many stories of celebrities and influencers having to request restraining orders due to overzealous fans insistent of wanting to please or be with them. While pretty privilege has its perks, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Now, I have a couple questions for you. Do you think pretty privilege is real? Have you or someone you know experienced pretty privilege? Let me know in the comments below. If you are familiar with the Netflix show Special, there's an episode called Free Scones. Basically, the main character Ryan discusses to his friend Kim how there are two types of people in the world: those who are free scone people and those who aren't. The free scone people go through life with ease because things just happen to them, things non-scone getters can only dream of. This led me into the topic of pretty privilege, so now here are my final thoughts. In my personal opinion, pretty privilege is an ambiguous topic, and it is really hard to discuss because it's something that can vary from person to person. Everyone has their own definition of pretty, so in some capacity, you can say that we all have some form of pretty privilege. However, this doesn't negate the fact that there are societal norms. There are certain factors that most people look for in others, and like I said earlier, the more boxes you check off, the more privilege you have. I feel like other privileges, it's kind of hard to control pretty privilege because it's a societal issue, and we would have to collectively work on changing these beauty standards that we constantly see. However, if we look at the argument that we're wired to choose attractive people, is it really something we can stop? I think it's something that could be minimized, especially in fields where physical attraction isn't a contributing factor to the situation. Society at this point cares about looks and appearance, so it wouldn't be an overnight change, but baby steps can be made. Pretty privilege is something we continue to hear about and try to decipher. I hope that we as a collective strive to give more opportunities to those who are capable and willing, and not just because we think they're pretty. Like I said before, baby steps at first, but I know that we'll get there eventually. Anyways, that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment letting me know your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!